This is Join Us in France, episode 468. 468. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France, everyday life in France, great places to visit in France, French culture, history, gastronomy, and news related to travel to France. Today, I bring you a trip report with Jessica Osborne about beach hopping on the Riviera. Jessica has been a dedicated Francophile for years and a listener of this podcast for 5 years. Last time I talked to her, we recorded an episode about her vacation in the French Alps with her baby. The baby is now 4 years old, and I never met a child who did not love to spend time on the beach. So that's what they did. They went to several beaches along the Riviera, including Cannes, Antibes, Nice, Villefranche-sur-Mer, Beaulieu-sur-Mer, and Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat. Oh, also Menton, and she has some things to say about Monaco. So, perhaps you're considering visiting these beaches with your own children? This episode is definitely for you. And for those of you who've never been to the Riviera, you should listen as well because you'll learn a lot. And if you just want to dream about going to the Riviera, welcome to this episode. This podcast is supported by donors and listeners who buy my tours and services, including my itinerary consult service, my GPS self-guided tours of Paris on the Voice Map app, or take a day trip with me around the southwest of France in my wonderful electric car. You can browse all of that at my boutique, joinusinfrance.com/boutique. I'll play a voice review from a very happy customer of my itinerary service and GPS tours after the interview. And today I'll also tell you about the France Bootcamp 2024. Tickets are already on sale for those of you who were on the waiting list. This weekend, I'll open it to patrons, and next weekend, it'll be open to everyone. Stay tuned and decide if this in-person event is for you. Just this week, Kim Loftus, who was at the bootcamp in 2023, told me she is going on a trip to Montreal with friends she made at the bootcamp, which was really, I was really happy to hear that because we could all use more in-person friends, and the bootcamp was definitely a good way to meet wonderful people. Bonjour, Jessica Osborne, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour, Annie. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you again.
Yes. Wonderful to talk to you again. I don't remember what episode number you were on.
So last time we talked about traveling to France with a baby. And now my daughter, Noelle, is 5 years old. So I can talk about traveling with a kid.
Fantastic. Well, in today's episode is going to be very, very fun because we're going to be talking about beach hopping on the French Riviera. How lovely is that? Did you really do that?
Yes, we did that last July, 2022. And for those who don't know me, I live in Arizona with my husband, my daughter, and we have a beagle named Louie. And the summers here can get really hot. They can get into the triple digits. So we escaped the heat for, I guess, more of a humid heat wave in France when we were there. But luckily, there's the Mediterranean Sea that we could swim and jump in when it got too hot and humid.
Right. So where did you go? Tell us all about it.
Yes. Okay. So we were actually in Europe for a month. We spent our first half in Italy. So we came from Florence. We took a 7-hour train ride to Nice. It's a long ride, but it's relaxing. We caught up on sleep and reading, and I just got to walk around the train cars and explore the countryside. So it was really enjoyable. And then we stayed in Nice.
Can you tell me a little bit about the differences between train service in France and Italy? Was it pretty much the same, or?
That's a good question. It felt the same, and I'm not sure. I think it was an Italian train car because it started from France that took us to Nice. But everything was on time. Everything was clean, and there were minimal stops. It was really enjoyable. But I would say, my general experience, the French train car system seemed to run more on time.
Very good. Okay, so you went from Florence to Nice. And then where did you stay in Nice?
Yeah, so we stayed in an apartment because we were staying there for 8 nights. I'll send the apartment in the show notes. I don't know the name offhand, but it was a great location. It was a 5-minute walk to the beach, a 10-minute walk to the train station, and then it was right across the street from a pedestrian area called Rue de France.
Oh, yeah.
So you've heard of it. So there's lots of cafes and shopping and a little market as well that we would pick up groceries in.
Right. It's parallel. What's it called in Nice? It's called the boardwalk. The
Promenade des Anglais, I think.
Promenade des Anglais, of course, yes.
Yeah. So what we decided to do was, since we were going to be there for a little over a week, we wanted to explore the different towns and beaches. So every morning, or most mornings, we would grab our croissant and then work our way to the train station. Very busy in the summer, so we had to get aggressive and push our way onto the trains to make them on time. And then we just hopped around to the different towns and beaches.
Right. And I assume since your daughter is 5, you weren't using a stroller?
Nope, no stroller. We made her walk. She did a great job, too.
She's a good little traveler?
Yeah, I think so. We would make up songs along the way when we were walking. And I think pain au chocolat, that helped motivate her to keep going.
Yes, it does. If not chocolatine, then, perhaps an ice cream or a crepe, perhaps. Kids tend to like those as well.
Yes. Oh, and the ice cream we had, maybe 2 to 4 times a day. So we got our fill of that.
That's wonderful. Okay, so which towns did you go beach hopping to?
Yeah, and I think I'll explain starting from the coast west to east, and then I'll explain how long the train ride was to each town. So we'll start in Caen. We took the TGV to Caen. It was a 40-minute ride, and there aren't any stops. So that's the fastest way to get there. And you have your own seat. So this wasn't so busy. This was actually a nice journey to Caen.
Mm-hmm.
And then the train station drops you off really close to their promenade, to their beaches. They're known for more of the soft, sandy beaches than you come across in the French coast. We took advantage of a beach club there. We went to the Carlton Beach Club. This is part of the Carlton Hotel. And we reserved our lounge chairs online in advance. I think we did it maybe the day before. So I highly recommend that. Because just a side note, I went to a couple beach clubs in Nice without booking, and they turned us away because there wasn't availability. We paid 45 euros a chair, and we got 2 chairs. Our daughter didn't need one. And it's actually, it's really nice. They give you these, really cush, almost like a mattress padding lounge chair with terry cloth on it. And they give you towels. Someone walks around throughout the day because you actually get to reserve these chairs for the whole day. But they walk around with menus, and you can order drinks and food. They give you a jug of water and cups to stay hydrated. And then they move the umbrellas for you to keep you shaded, or as much shade as you need. They're happy to move the umbrellas in and out of the sand.
Nice. Very good. And I assume they have bathrooms as well and changing rooms and all that.
Yes, that's a good point. You're also paying for the amenities, the changing room and the showers.
So is this attached to the hotel? Was this attached to the Carlton, or?
I think so. Or the Carlton might have been just across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the beach club is right on the beach. And I think there's maybe 3 to 4 rows of lounge chairs. So you couldn't get any closer.
Right. It's not a very wide beach, so the number of chairs is limited. And so, yeah, obviously, you want to book this in advance. Otherwise, I go to Spain a lot, and in Spain, you can just show up. And also, you only pay 12 euros for the chair.
Oh, nice.
Yes. But, it's not the same service. You don't have bathrooms. You don't have, you have showers, but you have bathrooms and showers, but they are the same ones everybody shares on the beach. You don't have a private, you don't have anybody walking around offering to take an order for drinks or food or anything. You have to bring your own. So, it's a different experience. That's why it's a lot cheaper, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this was definitely our splurge. And right, Caen is definitely one of the more pricier places along the Riviera, I think, with the film festival and all the luxury stores, which, if someone's interested in shopping for, those luxury brands in the Riviera. I recommend doing it here because it's right on the promenade on the beach. And there's like really interesting art sculptures that you can view as well. And yeah, I think it's a good place to do your high-end shopping is in Cannes.
Right. And if you want to go into the city of Cannes, it's also a city. So you can also go to the little shops in the city. Did you do any of that besides the high-end shopping?
Well, we did not do the high-end shopping, but I walked past it.
You walked past it. You saw them. You waved at them. Hello.
We saw them, yes. I said, oh, how nice.
Yeah, I do about the same.
But no, we didn't go too far into the main town, but we did work our way up the old town. It's on a hill, and you can wind your way up. And we had dinner in the old town up on the hill. There's also, I don't know if there's a church, if it's a church or some kind of fort or fortress. There's something at the top. We walked around with really great views as well.
Cool.
And we actually stayed here all day because when we arrived, we learned that there was a festival. They call it the Festival Pyrotechnic. And what they do in the summer is countries will demonstrate fireworks like with choreographed music. They compete with each other. So that day we saw Norway. So I think it's one country a day. And Norway was the winner, and everyone can vote.
Wow, that must have been quite spectacular.
Oh, it was amazing. It reminds me of, Las Vegas, the Bellagio fountains, but instead it was fireworks.
Wow, cool. And so they probably set this off like at 10, 11 at night or something?
Yeah, we stayed a little bit later. It was dark. Yeah, I think it might have been 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. We had booked the TGV earlier, and we just... we took the risk of missing it and then booking another train. But when we went back, we asked the conductor if we could get on the later TGV train, and he let us because it was empty. So yeah, I recommend just asking, and you never know. They might just let you use your same ticket on a different time.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. So in Cannes, other things you could have done that you didn't do because you were lazing around on the beach. How dare you? But what you could have done also is get on one of the boats that goes along the coast. They have boats that will take you to different places. And most of these little cruises take an hour or two, and they are very pleasant as well. But obviously, if you've rented a beautiful, lounge chair and you want to take it easy and your kid is having a grand time making sandcastles, why would you go anywhere else?
Right, but the boat sounds amazing. I know it's probably one of the Cannes is probably closest to Saint-Tropez in this area, so maybe next time I'll take a boat.
Maybe next time. Yeah, it's always worth going to the port and seeing what they offer in all these kind of seaside towns. Usually something is going on. Somebody's going to rent ski-doos or little boats or, whatever. They all have a different take on this, but it's usually something you can do without too much preparation. And of course, I'm sure that Cannes also has electric bike rentals, which you could do if you wanted to, go up the hill a little bit to see the place from a distance. I mean, there's always things you can do in a town like this because Cannes is really a city. It's not as big as Nice, but it is a good-sized city.
Yeah, absolutely. It was nice. It was beautiful, clean town along the promenade. A lot of kid-friendly things to do. There's a Ferris wheel, a double-decker carousel that my daughter wanted to ride on over and over. Ice cream vendors, games. It's kind of like a carnival boardwalk atmosphere in my mind.
Very cool. And you were there in July, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Very good. All right. Shall we move on to the next town you visited?
Let's talk about Antibes. So this is 25 minutes from Nice. So Antibes, it sits within rampart walls. Once you get off the train station, it's an easy 10-minute walk to the old town and the beach. To me, it kind of reminds me of Provence a little bit with the stone architecture. There's a Provençal covered market that they host every day. There's town squares that are really quaint and a great place for aperitivo and alfresco dining. Really cute boutiques here with like nicely crafted linens and produce like olive oils. And then the beach here, we went to the local beach. So it's below the ramparts. It's this crescent-shaped beach. The sand was a little bit more gravelly, so We didn't play in it too much, but we swam and we could swim out pretty far and still be within the bay.
Nice. Did you find the water pretty cold or was it a good temperature for you? Do you remember the temperature?
I don't remember the temperature, but I remember it was perfect. We didn't have to tiptoe in. We could just probably run in like we were on fire because it was so hot. But it was perfect weather.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was magical. I was just going to say a highlight that we had when we were swimming was a thunderstorm rolled in. And it was kind of exciting, though. Everyone seemed like a lot of locals were running out and we're all standing under the ramparts and people were dancing in the rain. And It was kind of magical just to watch the thunderstorm roll through.
Oh, that's fun. So you didn't stay quite as late that day?
No. Yeah, we were there for a short time. We probably headed home around 3.
And you didn't rent any chairs or anything? You just brought your towels and sat on the beach?
Yep, just brought a towel, sat on the beach. Yep, we probably spent more time in the town. We had a nice lunch and just explored a little bit. I found, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but I found a house with a sign that said, it was in French, but it said something about Bonaparte. So I'm wondering if Napoleon lived there or...
Oh, perhaps. Well, okay, so Bonaparte, when he came back after his first arrest, he did this walk. Oh yeah, Antibes is where he started his walk to Paris. That's got to be what it was. I can't remember what it's called right now. But yes, definitely a place where Bonaparte spent some quality time, Well, I'm sure he was there a lot because, Corsica is not that far. But they were probably remembering the time when he walked to Paris to retake power.
Oh, interesting. Very cool. Cool. We also saw a Picasso museum there as well.
Nice. And you saw a bunch of yachts. You wrote that it's a great place for yacht spotting.
Yeah. So when you leave the train station, if you just keep going straight down, to the left is the marina or the harbor. And that's where they call it Millionaires Row. So apparently it's the home to Europe's wealthiest yachts. So that'd be a great place to go yacht spotting.
Yes. If you'd like to shop around for the best yachts, you can do that in Antibes. So Antibes also has a really fun walk right along the beach. It's about a 5K walk. It has a name, but it's just a coastal walk that people really like. But since it's 5K and it's not paved or anything, you have to be up and down a lot and you're on rocks. But that's one that people really like because there are also areas where you can stop and take a swim. So it's just gorgeous doing that. But it takes, you have to be in fairly good health to do that sort of thing. And people also do it at night or just at sunset, the golden hour, just to get beautiful light and get some nice photos. Anyway, lots to do in Antibes as well. Again, boats. And did you see any private beach clubs in Antibes? I don't remember if they had. Well, I wasn't there in the summer. That's probably why I didn't see any.
I did not. We didn't go far past the public beach, but maybe around like where it juts out. But no, we did not see any.
Okay. So the reality is in France, there is always a public beach. So even if they have private beach clubs, you don't have to go to the beach club. You might have to walk in gravel or go to the rocky beach. You might need to bring, water shoes or whatever. But there's always a public beach if you don't want to pay for the beach clubs.
Yep, absolutely. And most of them even have showers too.
Yes, nice. Yes. Showers and pretty basic bathroom facilities. Just the essentials, let's put it that way. But, it'll do, I guess. All right. Ready to move on to talk about Nice?
Yes. Let's talk about Nice. And this is my favorite place, or at least a great home base. It's a larger city, but still very walkable and family friendly. I love the pastel buildings and the Art Deco architecture. Some things that we enjoyed doing was we hiked up to Castle Hill Park. And there's a lot of stairs, but along the way, there's this gorgeous, lush waterfall that you can view. And at the top, you're rewarded with amazing views of the city.
Well, there is also an elevator. If you go during business hours, there is an elevator. It's a little bit hard to find, but it's really not very far from where the stairs start. If you walk just around that bend, there is an elevator, and it's free. I think they stop at 5 or 5:30 p.m. or something, so it doesn't run all the time.
Got it. Oh, if only I knew. 'Cause I was pretty exhausted at the top.
Yeah, it's a lot of stairs.
Luckily, there's a cafe at the top. So I think I got a lemonade and maybe some kind of pastry.
Yes, but once you get up there, you have playgrounds, you have benches and drinks and things like that. So, and this is where there used to be a castle, but it's gone. So it's still called Castle Hill, but no more castle. Don't look for the castle. You won't find it.
Oh, bummer. Yeah, didn't see the castle.
What else do you like about Nice?
Yeah, I liked the flower market, or I think it's on Cours Soleil. So they have really great food, and the flowers are just so beautiful. I got some flowers on our first day to have in our apartment for the week, which is lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Mondays, they have a flea market, and I found really neat vintage, Chanel stuff. I found this lady who was selling miniature perfume bottles, really great home goods like porcelains and chandeliers, stuff I wish I could pack in my suitcase and take home with me.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then there's an old town there as well where you can just get lost. It's a lot of windy, narrow streets. And at nighttime, it comes alive. All the restaurants, they spill out into the streets, and everyone is just walking around doing their passeggiata. And it's like a living room for tourists and for locals.
It's a very fun thing to do in the evening. You go out and have an ice cream or dinner or a drink or whatever, and you just look around. It's fun.
Yeah, speaking of ice cream, I found my favorite gelato. It's called Finocchio. There's gazillion of flavors.
Yes, they do have a lot. They do.
My favorite flavor that I found was called Gianduja, and it's kind of like a Nutella, but denser. They use more of a hazelnut paste. So good.
Yeah, that's also a chocolate type. It's a praline kind of chocolate. Love it.
It was so good. Brings me back. Another place that my daughter really liked was Fountain Park. It's a football field size splash pad that goes off every 15 minutes. She got to play around and meet a lot of local kids as well.
Yes, so that's not far from the big statue. What's his name? The guy who stands there with his arms open and his...
Yeah, I don't know who it is, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's not very far from that.
And there's a lot of street performers over there, musicians, people playing the piano. It's lovely. And at night, we found some squares where they were hosting salsa dancing. It was fun. We walked to the beach at night, and it's just fun to people watch. We saw a lot of teenagers running around, and friends and lovers just sitting on the beach. People were skipping stones. People were still swimming. It was lively. You mentioned water shoes, and I think the Nice beach absolutely requires water shoes because it's very, very rocky. In fact, a lot of the places, the beach clubs have ropes that lead into the water so that you can get out. It's not well graded, and the rocks move under your feet when you try to get out of the water.
Right. And in parts, it can be pretty steep. You have to take big steps to get out of the water. And in those big rocky beaches, it's hard.
Yeah. And the waves here, I think I had the biggest waves that we saw, more of a wave pool. So it's still very gentle. And here we saw a lot of fish. So I recommend bringing snorkeling gear or goggles, and all these shops in Nice had all the stuff that we needed. We bought water shoes when we were there and snorkeling gear. So I don't think you need to pack it.
Were you attacked by any seagulls in Nice? Because they are pretty aggressive, the seagulls in Nice.
No, I don't think, no attacks this time. Maybe we weren't carrying anything that they wanted.
Exactly. Exactly. And it looks like you went to the Hotel Negresco for dinner?
Yeah, so I recommend the Hotel Negresco for a splurge. This time we had dinner at their beach club at night. They just turned it into more of a restaurant. But we watched the sunset and just had really fresh food and delicious wine. And it was a wonderful evening at the hotel.
Yeah, that's great. And also the Negresco, if you just want to go in for a drink, we went in with my friend. We just had some tea. They have this beautiful bar. Just the bar area is interesting. Just to see the inside of the hotel and the public areas anyway. It's very interesting. You can go in there for a drink or something. I've never had a meal there, but it's good to know that they serve good food. That's great.
Yeah, it's good. And you're right. We explored the hotel as well. And there's this massive chandelier that I don't really know the story very well, but I think It must have belonged to like Azure from Russia, and he couldn't take it with him. So he left it there.
Too big. That's great. That's great. All right. Next stop is Villefranche-sur-Mer. Hardly outside of Nice, really.
Very close. 6 minutes train. Very close. And here it's more of a, I think, more of a fishing village. You have to hike down a little bit to get to the beach. You have to walk through the marina and the cafes. But this is another crescent-shaped public beach. And we saw the most families and babies and kids swimming here. The water is very calm, and I think it had the clearest water. It was shallow, so you could see all the textures and colors from the pebbles. There's some sort of reef or maybe a rock a little bit. It was very close to the shore that you can swim to, and we saw a lot of people exploring this rock.
Very nice. And you mentioned a creepy medieval tunnel. Is that the rock you mean? I don't know about this.
Oh, this is different. So when we were walking down the streets to get to the beach, we found this little hidden kind of door. And I did some research and I learned that this is a military tunnel that was built in 1260. You can actually still explore it. It's very dark. I don't know if there's light, so I would recommend bringing a flashlight or your phone flashlight. People used to use this tunnel for wine cellar and storage. People would store their livestock in this tunnel. So it's an interesting part of the history. And hey, maybe it's a shortcut to the beach. I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm willing to test it out.
If it's too creepy, I don't go.
Yes, same.
So Villefranche is a nice. How big would you say the beach area is? Is there plenty for? Because I know it's very busy, but did it feel packed or?
It did. We probably could have walked further away and had less crowds. But I remember it being very crowded. We've had enough space to put one towel, and it was fine because we just spent most of the time in the water.
And there it's not sand, but it's not big rocks either, right?
Right. I remember it being small pebbles. We still needed water shoes because it felt a little uncomfortable on our feet.
Yeah, unfortunately, all these beaches, they are very busy in July and August. I mean, everybody wants to go to the beach, right?
Right. Yeah, we were prepared for that.
That's good. Beaulieu-sur-Mer et Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat. Ah, nice places.
Yes, that's next. Yes, that's a 10-minute ride from Nice. Very easy to walk to the beach from their train station. It reminds me of a mini Monaco. There's a casino. It's a very clean city, sort of glitzy. Seems to be mostly residential. We saw a lot of cyclists stopping there at the cafe. So I'm wondering if it's part of a cycling route. We didn't go to the beach that day because we walked the other direction to this elevated shoreline path towards Cap Ferrat. I believe the street's called Promenade Riviera.
Okay.
And we went to the Villa Rothschild. I thought it was Rothschild, but when I asked someone for directions, they didn't understand what I was saying. And then they were like, oh, Rothschild, yes, and pointed us in the right direction.
Yes.
When we got there, we went to the tea parlor for lunch, and it's just this beautiful room with all these windows. Great place for lunch, I think, after the walk. Might have been 2 miles of walking that we did on the way there. And then we explored the different rooms. And then I think the highlight of this villa is the gardens. And there's also a fountain show. But the gardens, you can just get lost in and explore. There's different kinds of gardens here. So there's a French, Spanish, Provençal, Japanese, Florentine, exotic garden, stone garden, rose garden. It was all spectacular. So highly recommend going to Villa Rothschild.
Yes, it's very popular. I mean, lots of people go every year. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I agree. And they have golf carts that can take you down the hill through the parking lot, so you can save your feet a little bit if you need to.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and then there's the beach. I did some research because we didn't go there, but it's called La Petite Afrique Beach, and I think it's the most shaded beach along the coast. There's a lot of palm trees, but I think there's a lot of trees. And here there's more volleyball courts and water sport rentals. So I think that's the place to go for that.
Yeah, very good. Beach volley.
Right? I didn't see that anywhere else. So it's your Top Gun vibes.
Yeah, the beaches are not big enough in Provence to have that. You need big, long, sandy beaches for that, I guess. They don't have so much of that.
Yeah, must be.
cool. Let's talk about Menton now.
Okay. Yeah, this is the last place that we went to, that we explored. So Menton, it's 40 minutes train from Nice.
It's almost in Italy. I mean, when you're in Menton, you're really almost in Italy.
Yes, you're right. It's on the border. I wonder if it even must have been. Oh, we did the Petit train and we learned a lot of history. I don't really remember much, but I think the Monaco Principality used to own that area in Menton.
Yes, yes.
And here the train station was under construction, so it was a little dusty. Menton had the longest walk, I think, to the main town.
Okay.
It might have been a 20-minute walk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad, though. And the water here, I think it had the longest stretch of shallow water.
That's great for kids.
Yes, exactly. And it's right next to the harbor, so it's neat to see all the different boats lined up. And when you swim out, there's a little floating dock that you can swim to and jump off of. And then when you look back at the town, I think it has the most beautiful view that we saw on the Riviera, because it looks at the town of Menton and all the old colorful buildings. It reminded me like the Cinque Terre in Italy.
Yeah, it is gorgeous. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And you mentioned in your notes that it's famous for the Fête du Citron. So it's like citrus festival. And it's in February and March. And it's absolutely stunning. Yeah, that's really, really beautiful. People come from all over the world to see it.
Very cool. I don't know if it's called a billboard, but I guess we saw some signs that showed pictures from it. And it kind of reminds me of a carnival type of atmosphere with the parades and everything, floats, everything's made out of citrus.
Yes. Lots of citruses, yeah. And you mentioned a pirate ship. I don't remember the pirate ship. Tell me about that.
Well, yeah. So there's another little bay that we didn't swim in, but we walked around and it was cute. There's a little library shack where you can check out a book and read it.
Oh, nice.
And there also was a pirate ship playground. So not quite a real pirate ship, but a playground for kids to play in.
That's good. So how did your daughter do with all the, I mean, kids normally love the beach, right? Was she happy as a clam most of the time, or did she get bored with it after a while?
No, I think she was happy as a clam. She loved it. We would try to get back to our apartment by around 4:00 and have 4 to 7 to take a siesta and to relax and decompress from being out in the sun all day. I think it was the hardest to get back on the train. It's just even busier than in the morning, and everyone smells a little ripe from being outside and in the sun.
Yeah.
And then you still have to walk home. So yeah, that was probably the hardest part of the day, was getting home.
Yeah. So did you try and get there early every day, or did you just wake up when you woke up?
Yeah, we try to get there early. I would say we would try to get somewhere by 8:00 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that helped. Is that early?
That's early. Be there by 8:00? Oh, yeah, that's very early. On vacation? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know.
But little kids usually wake up early, don't they?
Yeah, we were all just so excited for the day. And it was easy to get train tickets. I have an app that I downloaded called Rail Europe, and just look at the times maybe the night before and book the tickets. The tickets were fairly cheap, maybe 5 to 10 euros a person round trip.
Mm-hmm. And the trains come all the time, right? And along there, I mean, taking the train, you really, really do not want a car on the French Riviera. The trains run all the time. They're not that expensive, and they can take you most places you want to go.
Yes, I agree. I don't think we waited more than 20 minutes for a train.
Yeah. And if you want to go somewhere a little further, for instance, if you want to go see the city of Aise up in the hill, you can take the train to Aise Village, which is at the bottom of the cliff where the train runs. And then you can just wait for an Uber, call an Uber to take you up the hill. Or you could walk, or you could take the city bus. There's also a city bus. One thing to know is that you cannot get an Uber to take you into Monaco. Yes, they are not allowed to enter Monaco. So if you want to go to Monaco, take the train all the way into Monaco. You have some thoughts on Monaco. I want to hear them because I tend to agree with you. Let's see what you thought.
Yeah, Monaco, right? I mean, I feel like maybe you have to go to say you've been there, to say you've been to a small principality or place where the Grand Prix is.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I don't think Monaco captures the essence of the Riviera. I remember it to be more of a concrete jungle of high rises. I thought it was hilly, so not very walkable, and everything's spread out. So there's the casino, but then you probably need transportation to take you to the aquarium and the palace. And the shopping, a lot of people want to splurge in Monaco, but the shopping reminded me of like Vegas style stores.
Yeah, it doesn't have that much charm. And it is a lot of high rises because there are a lot of people packed in a very small place. Now, it's very wealthy. And so, it's very clean, very safe, all of that. And they do have elevators. A lot of these staircases, there's usually also an elevator that you could get into to avoid walking up the stairs. But it is very, very hilly. Like you just, you're constantly going up and down, and getting anywhere takes a while because you have to wait for the elevator, and then there's always a few more steps. Anyway, it is not my favorite place to go to by far. Like, it's, yeah. People who like the Grand Prix, excellent. I've been there, I enjoyed the church. I enjoyed seeing Grave Kelly's place. Well, grave, all of that. But it's just a different world, I think, Monaco.
Yeah, I agree. Go for a half day, say you've been there, but I don't recommend staying there or spending too much time in Monaco.
So do you have any tips for families going with children to these places?
Yeah, so, I recommend, packing for these day trips, right? Bring your water shoes, your snorkeling gear, bring sunscreen. I recommend you don't have to pack sunscreen when you fly to France. Just go to the pharmacy. I think they have wonderful products. And then bring shampoo. Because most places, even if you don't rent a beach club, there's local showers. Mm-hmm. And then you can shampoo the salt and the sand off your body and your hair. And, you'll be the best smelling person on the train.
Yes, otherwise you're going to be itchy, because it's very, very salty. And you might be the smelliest person on the train, which you do not want to be.
Right. Yeah, it gets really crowded.
Tell me a little bit about food in that area. Did you have any issues finding restaurants, finding affordable places to eat or whatever?
Yeah, there's a lot of cafes. We didn't even have to do any research. We would just walk by. And of course, you have to plan for the certain lunch and dinner setting hours. But yeah, we'd just sit down, and everything on the menu had something that my daughter would eat, like pizza, and pizza.
Pasta.
Oh, yeah, pasta. Yeah, of course. Pasta as well. There's a lot of Italian influenced food, I think, in the Riviera. So gelato.
It's
exactly.
Italian. Yeah. And you have a lot of wonderful fruit in the summer,
Oh, yeah. You reminded me at the market one day, we got a cantaloupe and brought it to our apartment. And the whole place smelled like sweet, perfectly ripe melon. It was delicious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The cantaloupes are fun. And they come from not very far. Cavaillon is a place, probably, 100 kilometers away, where they grow a lot of wonderful, wonderful cantaloupes. Yes. And a favorite way to eat them is either you mix them with some prosciutto ham, or you put a little port wine inside and dig it out. It's so good. I can't wait to do that. I love summer just so you can do that, Yeah, I got to do that at least once a week.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I know we had bought balsamic vinegar in Italy, so we used that and drizzled that on the cantaloupe. That was delicious.
Yes. And it's really important what you said. You didn't really even do research about restaurants, and you don't really need to. I think, unless there's a special meal that you want to have because it's your birthday or your anniversary or something, really, you can just go with the flow and enjoy whatever's in front of you. I'm a big proponent of that. When you're on vacation, don't try to plan every minute, and don't try to see the best bakery and the best restaurant and the best beach. Just go to the freaking beach. It's right there in front of you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And follow your nose. You can smell the good boulangerie.
Yes.
In your neighborhood.
Yes. Just go with what's right in front of you and don't stress about the small stuff.
Yes, I agree.
So is this something you recommend other families do? Just go beach hopping all over the French Riviera? Another question is, was that a really expensive vacation or was it reasonable?
I thought it was reasonable. We booked our apartment, I think, maybe 6 months in advance. And I could tell you I think it was $700 for 8 days,
wow,
which is a great price.
Yeah.
And such a great location. And the beach is free if you do the public beaches. And, we only splurged that one day and maybe one meal. So I thought it was very, very affordable. And I highly recommend families go here. I think the Riviera deserves a week. So highly recommend. I wish I would go back every year. I would live there. I love it so much.
Yes. And if you can go during the shoulder season, so perhaps in May or June or September, you will have fewer people. The prices are going to be essentially the same. You're not going to pay a lot less just because it's May, but it won't be quite as crowded because it is true that there are a lot of people in July and August because it's vacation time for locals. And so they want to go to Nice as well. And to all of these, Menton is a beautiful place. I mean, who wouldn't want to go there? So I think I heard on French radio recently that number one place for French people where they want to go is Corsica. Everybody wants to go to Corsica, but the French Riviera is a close second.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been there in May and September, and I thought May the water was a little chilly, but good for cold plunging, I guess. September, the water's perfect. You make a good point because I think one of the mistakes we made was we booked a flight home like the first weekend in August. And I think that's when most people in Europe take that month off.
Yeah.
So I remember London Heathrow actually had to cancel our flight and we paid a fortune to find a one-way ticket home from Paris. And we took French B. I had never heard of it, but I think it's maybe a smaller airline.
Is that all right? I've considered it, but I haven't dared book a ticket on it.
It was fine. It's like the Southwest Airlines of France. So you have to pay for if you want a meal. But it was fine. It was comfortable. It was expensive, though.
Well, if it's last minute, yes, it is expensive.
Yeah, that blew our trip.
It's crazy that they canceled your tickets and didn't give you a different option.
Yeah, it's a longer story than that that I won't get into. But I don't know if you remember last year, London Heathrow had some issues with a shortage of people.
Yeah, Heathrow last summer was a nightmare. It was way worse than CDG. I mean, that's horrifying. Worse than CDG? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know, right? We went to France around Christmas time last year, or a couple years ago, and at CDG, we missed our flight. And we were there 5 hours earlier and still missed our flight. It was nuts.
Yeah, I think things have calmed down. My husband flew to Holland last few days, and his flights still get canceled or rescheduled or delayed or whatever. It's funny to me because people talk about how long it takes to go anywhere on an electric car because you have to stop and recharge. But tell you what, flying these days is just as long because your flight is going to be delayed. It's not like they all go, completely flawlessly. So anyway. Jessica, thank you so much. It's been lovely having you back on the podcast. Next time you have adventures in France, please write to me. I would love to have you back on the podcast for a third time.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Annie. I really appreciate the time, and I love your podcast. I listen every week to your episodes. It feeds my Francophile addiction. So thank you for what you do.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Again, I want to thank my patrons for giving back and supporting the show. Patrons get several exclusive rewards for doing that. You can see them at patreon.com/join us. Thank you all for supporting the show. Some of you have been doing it for many years now, and you are wonderful. However, I have to complain about something new that's happening with Patreon. Most people who joined Patreon recently, and there were quite a few, went to Patreon and saw that they could sign up for a new thing called a free tier. Now, this totally defeats the purpose of Patreon because I get zero support from you if you do that. When you join the free tier, you simply give Patreon permission to track you and serve you ads, sell you merchandise, whatever. It does nothing for me, nothing at all. I know that perhaps they'll give you a snippet of one of the rewards and it'll encourage you to join. Look, if you want to support the podcast, join one of the paid tiers on Patreon. It's as little as $2 per month. And for $5 per month, you get quite a few rewards, including a monthly Zoom, which is always a lot of fun. To join this wonderful community of Francophiles, go to patreon.com/join us. And to support Elise, go to patreon.com/EliseArt. That's patreon.com. Then join us, no spaces or dashes. And for Elise, it's EliseArt, ELYSART. This week, instead of telling you about my itinerary service and my voice map tours, I will let Laura Cantrell do it for me. Thank you so much, Laura, for sending that voice memo.
Hi, Annie. This is Laura Cantrell. My husband Ralph and I had a wonderful trip to France in early October, and we so appreciated your great advice and itinerary recommendations. We visited Arles, Avignon, Aix-en-Provence, and Paris, and in every location, your suggestions added so much to our travels. It's hard to pick a highlight from the trip because it was all really wonderful. One thing that was a special treat was a suggestion you made when we spoke to you that we hadn't thought of. You suggested that we rent a car to get from Avignon to Aix-en-Provence instead of taking the train as we had planned. That way we could explore the Luberon a little. That was such a great experience, and we enjoyed seeing the beautiful countryside and the charming villages along the way. So thank you for suggesting that. We also really enjoyed your voice map tour of the Marais while we were in Paris and learned a lot about that part of the city. All in all, it was a great trip, and we're already planning our next visit. Merci, Annie.
If you'd like to avail yourself of any of these services, go to joinusinfrance.com/boutique. All right, let's talk about the 2024 bootcamp. The dates for this bootcamp are Saturday, May 11th until Sunday, May 19th. But we start in the morning and we end late at night. So I recommend that you arrive in Toulouse on May 10th and you don't leave until May 20th. Here's the idea. You spend 3 hours in French class in the morning, Monday through Friday, and in the afternoon we go to visit somewhere cool around Toulouse. And we also have 2 full weekends that we spend together, and we go on longer excursions for that. The schedule is not 100% set in stone, but I can already tell you that we'll go to Albi and Carcassonne. We'll also go to a painted cave, perhaps 2. We'll have a couple of days in Toulouse, my fair city. We'll do an afternoon with a winemaker. We'll visit a food market. We'll have a cheese tasting. We will have a grand time. So for now, I'm not going to reveal the URL where you can book this experience because space is limited to 40 and patrons get first dibs. But look at your calendar to see if you can make it. Listen to episode 444 of the podcast to hear what the 2023 bootcampers had to say about it and see if that's something you'd like to do. And then next Sunday, I'll reveal the URL and hopefully you'll be ready to decide if you want to do this or not. In 2023, bootcampers said that they loved the language learning and the cultural immersion. And this year it's going to be with the same school. And the cultural immersion, well, of course, you'll be in Toulouse. Yeah, beautiful city, wonderful time. They loved it in Toulouse. They also loved the community because you will find yourself surrounded with Francophiles and fans of the podcast. And everyone was so wonderful. It was such a privilege to spend time with these people. They loved the food. They loved the tours, the activities, the convenience of seeing so many beautiful places in such a short time without having to plan anything. That was my job. And of course, the supporting environment, because there were very few problems, but the few problems that came up, I dealt with it, and that was that. So I hope you sign up. And remember, once we get to 40 people, the bus is full. I will close the registrations. My thanks to podcast editors Anne and Christian Kotoven, who produce the transcripts and make the podcast sound good. This resource is very important because you can search for all of these tips that we've shared over the years, and it will help you organize your own trip to France very, very effectively. Next week on the podcast, an episode about favorite novels set in France with Elise. So many great books that you should consider. And we did this with the help of Jenny, who keeps a running list on the Facebook page. And so we looked at some of those books and added our own. As a matter of fact, there's a book that we didn't talk about when we recorded this episode because I hadn't read it yet, but it's called A Woman of No Importance, and I'm almost at the end of it, and it's about this American woman who played a huge part in the French resistance, and she spent quite a bit of time in Lyon, and she was also very, very involved with Le Cambon-sur-Lignon. We did an episode about this. It was episode 301. It was a place of refuge and a place where a lot of people saved a lot of Jewish children in particular. Anyway, a beautiful, beautiful book and so many more. You'll hear all about that next week. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you join me next time so we can look around France together and think about that boot camp. I think you'll love it. Au revoir. The Join Us in France travel podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2023 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.